Hey, talking to myself. Welcome to the podcast. I know that you gon' feel Dave Sands the second, talking movies and gaming, even anime. Yeah, I might just go Super Saiyan. 242, the Bahamas, we gon' rep. Don't be anxious about nothing. Philippians 4:6. Sharing about my life, sharing about God's truth. Always keep it real when I'm talking to myself. Let's go.
Mic check, 1, 2, 3. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talking to Myself. I am in a very, very, very good mood. As you can hear from the beginning of this podcast, I have an intro. Wow. If you were to tell me that years ago that I would have an intro, I've been like, you right? Because why not? But no. Wow. It slaps. Does it not? Y'all got to DM me and let me know how y'all feel about this intro. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 5 of the Talking to Myself podcast. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Dave, we heard this intro for the last 4 episodes and now episode 5. Why are you just talking about it now? The reason being is because I just got the intro today. Today being August, I think, 29th? 2020? Yeah, August 29th, 2023. And so I didn't want to react to the intro until I actually had the intro. And I gotta tell y'all, I was blown away by this intro. It slaps. It has everything that I needed it to. I believe by this time I would have posted a reel about my first reaction to the initial, the first version of the intro. I sent the guy some revisions that I need, like just 2 revisions, but other than that, it hits everything that I need. And let's kind of dive into that, because in today's episode, we are talking about the intro, but we are also talking about something that's very personal to me, and that is the Certified Public Accounting exams, the CPA exam. We're going to be talking about my full journey with it, because I have a lot of friends and people that I know that are going through their CPA journeys, and maybe this can be helpful to them. And I also want to shine some light on the CPA, the journey itself, and things that people who don't go through the process may not be aware of. And so I'm excited to talk about that. But first, this intro, man. First and foremost, to all my friends and family that have my number, I need you to delete that, because I have an intro and it slaps. Are you kidding me? It has everything that I wanted it to have. So, backstory, right? When I thought of the idea of getting an intro, I immediately thought of this website called Fiverr. If you don't know what Fiverr is, I think they say it in the UK. I'm not sure, can you spare me a Fiverr? I don't know. But I don't really know the full origin, so forgive me if that's incorrect. But Fiverr is a website where freelancers of all sorts could go on and sell their skills. So they could sell their skills in animation, in Photoshop, in music production. And so, because I watch a lot of YouTube, that's how I learned about this website. Because some YouTubers would have or do this idea whereby they pay Fiverr rappers to rap on a beat that they have produced. And so I was just like, maybe this podcast needs an intro to spice it up and make this thing truly a podcast, bro. And so immediately when I search up Fiverr rappers, I found this YouTube short with a YouTuber sending in requesting a Fiverr rapper to create just a random song for him, right? And the rapper that he found was called Keybox. Keybeaux. We are shouting him out because, my goodness, he did such an amazing job. Keybox. Keybeaux. If you need an intro with 0 profanity, because he does no profanity in any of his work, which is truly remarkable. If you need an intro for your podcast or YouTube or whatever, go on Fiverr and go to him, please. This man produced an absolute banger for me. So, yeah, I listened to that YouTube short and I saw it was him. And then I watched a YouTube video of like kind of like his backstory with music. So, you know, he's well versed in music and how much like the video was kind of talking about how much like Fiverr rappers can make, and he making a good chunk of money. But also I just wanted to like know who he kind of was, his character, things of that nature. And when I saw that first YouTube short, I was just like, this is the guy. Like, this is the guy that I need to produce an intro that I'm thinking about in my head. And it's so amazing how far we have come from a technological standpoint, bro. I got my intro produced from someone in the US, and then he then produces that, send that MP3 file back to me, and now I have an intro. That's so crazy. Anyway, what were the things that I was looking for in this intro? I needed it to be bright. I needed it to slap. I needed it to be an absolute banger, mate. Like, a lot of the suggestions that I gave him were like these bright songs with like a choir undertone, and the beat was slapping and the trumpets were banging. And I think that he went above and beyond what I could expect. And I also told him that I need the intro to catch listeners within 5 seconds. And I don't know about y'all, but that intro catches me in the first 5 seconds. And so I am really, truly, very, very happy about how this intro turned out. It's a banger. It slaps. Again, delete my number. I'm fully Hollywood now. But no, in all seriousness, I'm just so grateful that it came out so well. And I'm so happy that I waited to actually react to it on video so everyone could see my genuine reaction to it, because that was legitimately the first time that I listened to it. And so, absolute banger. Fully enjoyed it. Wow, what a song. Whew. So I think that intro gave me a lot of energy to continue on with this podcast, because not that I was losing momentum or anything, but it's just like when you're trying to come up with topics and you're trying to make sure, you know, it ties in with scripture and it's entertaining and all these different things, you know, you kind of worry about those things. But that's why I like the intro say, Philippians 4:6, don't be anxious. Come on now. It's a banger. You can repeat it, you know, whatever. I'll sell it to someone if they need it. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it's an absolute banger, and I'm so happy about it. So with that being said, we are going to go into a topic that, and a story and something that means so much to me. The Certified Public Accounting Exams. It is... I'm going, get your popcorn, mate. Get your food, get your dinner, get your water. We are going on a journey, because this is truly something that means a lot to me. And it changed me for the better, and I grew so much during that time. And so before we get into like the story and everything, I want to start by talking about like, what is the CPA exam? Because a lot of people who are not taking it might not know it. So the Certified Public Accounting Exam is basically this. When you are in the profession of accounting, when you study accounting in university, you want to get licensed, right? Licensing provides many benefits for people. Obviously, financially, you could basically, you know, get up the corporate ladder. I think, too, like you can, once you have your letters, you could sign off on financial statements, you know, things of that nature. And so when you're in the accounting profession, you look to get that certification. You look to get that CPA. From what I understand right now, and this is just off of the dome, I only know about 2 ways you could get the CPA exam, or 2 places. You could get it in the United States, so there's the US version of the CPA exam, and then you have the Canadian version of the CPA exam. I have like old university friends that did the Canadian version, right? But I did the US version because, well, that's closer to the Bahamas. Everyone who's in the Bahamas, not if you're still living here 9 times out of 10, you're doing the US version of the CPA exam. So we now know a little bit of the reason why people, you know, sit the CPA exam. Obviously, for financial purposes, to climb the corporate ladder, and obviously for me, just to achieve a big goal that you've been talking about for years. I talked about the CPA exam probably beginning in grade 9 of high school, maybe grade 10. Like, you know, when you're in class and like the teacher asks you what you want to be, I'd be like, okay, I want to be an accountant, you know, and then I did like summer internships, and then the phrase CPA started coming out over the course of maybe not high school, but like beginning of university. So yeah, I always knew I wanted to be an accountant. My biggest inspiration is my father. He's a great accountant, CPA as well. Extended family is all in like the CPA, the CFAs, the business pool of things, right? So business was always in my blood. So it was kind of natural that I got that gene. And so what do we need to know about the CPA exam? The US version. Couple things. When I took it, because there's a lot of changes that have happened since then. Number one, there are 4 parts to the CPA exam. You have audit, which you call it AUD, or we just call it audit. BEC, which is your business environment and concepts. BEC kind of dealing like your operations management, like dealing with like direct materials, raw materials, work in progress, things like that. Sorry, audit dealing with like, you know, the reason for audit is to provide an opinion on the financial statements. So looking at materiality, performance materiality, looking at different assertions when you're testing different parts of balances, transactions, classes, things of that nature. Then you have your regulation, which is just your U.S. tax, everything dealing with tax, your corporate tax, personal income tax, your 1090s, C corps, S corps, things of that nature. Everything dealing with U.S. tax, that's what reg covers. Audit, BC, reg, and FAR, which is your financial accounting and reporting. That's dealing like with your assets, your liabilities. I think that's kind of like your accounting 101, if you will, like your, you know, assets plus liabilities equals shareholders equity. That's right. Yes. Yes, it is right. Okay, cool. Just your basic accounting principles and things of that nature. And so with those 4 parts, you can take them in any order that you want to. There is no set way that you need to take them. That's basically it. 4 exams, you got to pass them, right? Simple, right? No. So once you pass any one of those exams, as soon as you get that first pass back, whenever that is, then you have, at the time of me doing the exam, you have an 18-month window to pass the other 3. And I know what you might be saying to yourself, Dave, 18 months is a long time. That's a year and 6 months, right? And I agree with you, that is a long time. But there are a lot of things that you have to factor into that 18 months. Number 1, you got to pass the other 3. And I don't think a lot of people recognize that. 18 months is great, but that's assuming that you pass these exams on the first try. And there's a high, I can't remember what the statistic was on the last wave, but there's like a 50% chance of passing these exams. The other 50% chance is that you're failing, and that's what most people fall into. I am most people, myself included. And so it's a huge journey. It's a huge process. We're going to dive into my personal journey with it. And yeah, I hope it could just be an inspiration of faith, perseverance, and yeah, it's going to be fun to kind of finally talk about this. Funny story, actually. I was planning, if I didn't do the Talking to Myself podcast, I did have another podcast of mine called Channel 75. Why was I calling it Channel 75? It was because the passing score for the CPA exam is a minimum of 75. 75 and higher, you're good. But everyone's trying to just get that 75 to move on, right? So yeah, I was going to do like a whole podcast on Channel 75 because that 75 number has become my favorite number, because seeing that number brought me real joy during my CPA process. But yeah, let's kind of start off the story of my CPA journey. So, and I guess I'll add in additional information about the CPA exam. Okay, cool. So when I was in my second year of university, I believe me and my dad had that discussion of the CPA exam. So in order to sit the CPA exam, you need 120 credits, right? I can't say that. I believe most universities will get you to 120 credits. Yeah, but my school definitely did in terms of how many credits I was gonna get. So I was gonna get 120 credits by the time I graduated, right? So cool, fine, and dandy. But that's not the only thing, right? I just said that you need 120 credits to sit the exam. We didn't talk about actual licensing yet. What I mean by licensing is that once you pass all 4 parts of the CPA exam, then you could finally get your letters behind your name. But in order to do that, you need 150 credits. I don't know if that's across all state boards. State boards referring to in each state in the U.S., they have their own accounting state board with their own set of rules, things of that nature, right? So for most Bahamians, we need to find a state board that allows us to register under them without a social security number, because obviously in the Bahamas, we don't have social security numbers. So we're limited to which states we can go into. So at the time, I was registered under the state of New Hampshire because at the time with their regulations and everything and their rules for, taking the exam and licensing, you didn't need a social security number. Fine. We'll get to how I was able to change and all that to a new state. But yeah, you needed 150 credits. And so, well, for licensing at least. So me and my dad kind of set out a plan whereby by the time that I graduated in 4th year, I would have 150 credits. So I believe I started overloading my classes in my 3rd year university. So in one semester, I'm taking 6 classes. The next semester, I'm taking 6 classes again. And then I would do summers in Wolfville, Nova Scotia, which is where Arcadia was. And so I would do any class, really. I mean, the whichever state board you're under will approve your credits anyway. So I did my business classes, but then I was able to do like other classes. So I was able to do like my arts and music and all those different things. Whatever you had to do to get those 150 credits, that's what you'll do. And so I overloaded for 4 semesters across year 3 and year 4, and I did 2 summers to get my 150 credits. So actually, when I graduated Acadia, the day after, I had summer classes. And I remember actually telling the prof the day before I graduate, like, hey, I won't be in tomorrow because I'm graduating. And he was just like, you're graduating? So yeah, it was kind of a weird dynamic, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do to get your credits, right? So that's what I did. So by the time I graduated, I was at the cusp at 150 credits, and by the summer of 2028, when I finally came back home permanently, I had my 150 credits, right? And so yeah, so then I came back home, right? And now it's time to start the thing that I've been talking about for years. The reason why I overloaded, the reason why I did 2 summers in Canada, the CPA exams, right? And man, back then I was just so naive to what that meant. I didn't know what it meant to be a CPA candidate. I was just 21 at the time. And so the only thing I heard was, okay, it's an exam. I've passed exams in the past. Nah, is this an exam, dog? Like, how hard can it be? Boy, was I wrong. But yeah, I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna study the way that I normally studied, which apparently was wrong. And, I'll pass these exams. And so, I started on my journey. The first exam that I ever sat was the audit section, because it was recommended that whatever field you're working in at the time, working in audit, that's the exam you should sit. So I started studying for audit now. So to give a little bit more information about the CPA exam from a Bahamian perspective, when you want a couple of things, when you want to sit the CPA exam, you can't sit that thing in the Bahamas. It's a US-based exam. So guess what? When any CPA candidate wants to sit the CPA exam, they have to travel to the States. No ifs, ands, or buts. You have to go to the States. So there's another element added to the CPA exam for Bahamians. It's the travel element, making the time. Obviously, there's an additional financial cost because you have to travel every single time. For most people, if they're in a big four firm, hopefully, the firm will cover that, or whatever company that would be in, right? And so you have to, one, plan when you think that you're best able to sit the exam. You then have to request time off from your workplace to then sit that exam, and then you have to go and take that thing. And like I mentioned earlier, it's like a 50% chance you're going to pass this thing, and so the odds are really against us in terms of that. There's just so many elements from a Bahamian perspective, from this Bahamian perspective of the CPA exam that are factor into us. The travel, the booking of the exam on a place called Prometric, and then making sure you find the date that you're looking for. And mind you, sometimes those dates aren't available. And so I got really good at going on Prometric's site and checking every single day for the date I was looking for. And I have to be really diligent with that. In the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon, I'm checking that site because I got to secure that date. I'm going to say which place that I passed all my exams in soon, because that's the lucky spot of anybody listening. But yeah, I had to find that one place. And so, yeah, every single candidate has to go through that. They have to book Bahamians at least, book plane tickets, book a hotel, book time, study, all those different things. So I hope you're understanding that there are a lot of factors that come into the CPA exam, right? And so, yeah. And so at the time, working, new to my career, trying to understand that and, trying to study, I found it very challenging for me. I'm someone who, do I have a one-track mind? I guess when it comes to like the big things in life and when I'm trying to achieve something, I'm one track in that mind. But I found during the time, I found it really difficult to balance out the work and the study. It was truthfully one of the hardest things ever. It was difficult, and when I look back at those times, those were some of the hardest times for me. I'd come home after a long day of work, exhausted, but then I have to pick up a book and study for an exam I didn't know I had a chance of passing. And I don't know if many people know this, because I am an advocate for the CPA exam. Whenever I hear someone say they're taking the CPA exam, I'm like, yes, you're going to go on a journey and you're going to pass. You're going to get there. We don't know when, but God knows, right? But when you continuously do that, and at the time, I was just losing everything. Like, I was losing my free time. I was losing time to hang with friends, play video games, relax, and do the things that I enjoy. You begin to build resentment. And I can honestly say that I hated the CPA exam. I hated it. It didn't bring me any fulfillment. It brought me nothing but pain and suffering at the time. I found no joy in it. When I first wrote my first exam, I was just like in that exam room. And let me tell you something as well. The exam is 4 hours. 4 hours? 3 hours? 4 hours? 3 hours? How long is the CPA exam? 4, 6, I can't remember how long. Yeah, it is 4 hours. Okay, sorry, I had to research that. But yeah, 4 hours for each part. Each of those 4 parts is a 4-hour exam. So you have like Testlet 1, Testlet 2, which would be like your multiple choice questions. Testlet 3, which would be like your simulation questions. Then you get like I believe it's a 15-minute break after Testlet 3 if you want to take it, where like your time pauses, because during the exam, there's an actual timer that counts down from 4, then it goes like to 3:59, and then boom, when you hit 0, that thing's submitted, and that's it. Whatever you did is what you did. So yeah, Testlet 3, you take a break, and then you get to Testlet 4 and 5, which is also simulation questions, right? And so, yeah, that's kind of how the exam was, and I can't tell you how much pressure is in that exam room, man. The pressure of being there by yourself. It's you versus the computer screen, because you do the exam on a computer. And man, some days, bro, a lot of days, them questions hard, them questions hard. The exam would sometimes do like questions that don't count towards your score. So you have like multiple choice that'd be dead difficult that you may not know. But that could be like a throwaway question, or you'd have like one simulation that's a throwaway question. It's crazy, bro. The CPA exam is also a mental game, which a lot of people don't get. It's so mentally taxing. But yeah, anyway, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, I had so much resentment for the exam. And I remember having that conversation like with my parents. I was just like, mom and dad, if I had, unlimited time, I think I would pass this thing. And so from their grace and, them seeing how much I was kind of like struggling at the time, they gave me the opportunity to step away from work and to become a full-fledged student once again. And so that was the ticket I was looking for. Truthfully, a lot of those days I was really sad, man. Those are some hard times for me. I was really, really sad. I was questioning God a lot of times, like, God, why do you have me in this place right now? Why do you have me in a place of suffering? I'm not out here doing nothing crazy. I'm just trying to pass an exam. Why are you doing this to me? Throughout that time period from 2018, when I came back home, to 2019, when I stepped away from work to focus on the exam, I failed multiple times. I failed every single part, except reg. I didn't take reg then. But audit, B, CFAR, yeah, you name it, I failed them things. I think I failed audit 3 times, BC once, FAR once, reg once. So I failed 6 times in total. And I guess 6 times total after finally passing the thing. I know some people who are writing the exam like, man, that's a lot. But the funny thing is, like, no one ever asks you like how many times you fail. They only ask you if you're a CPA or not. And so the person that passed on the first try, and me who failed 6 times, we're both called CPAs at the end of the day. Absolute blessing. And our CPA has the same meeting, so that's really great. But anyway, after stepping away from work in 2019, I don't know if y'all heard of it, but in 2020 we had this little thing called COVID-19. Ooh. And so everything shut down. The world stopped for a second. I mean, I remember like hearing how it was in China, and then it got to the US, and then eventually it hit NASA, and then boom, everything kind of just stopped for a second. And at the time, NASA wasn't, planes weren't going in and planes weren't coming out. So how in the world can I get to the US? As I mentioned earlier, the only way Bahamians could sit this exam, if they're still in the Bahamas, is that they have to fly over to the US. And so what do I do? Well, the only thing I could do during that time was study. And so at the time I was studying for FAR, and I studied FAR for a long time. And, my dad kind of came in and became my amazing tutor. And so he really helped me like break down the concepts. And before you know it, there was an opportunity for me to actually finally sit this exam after months of studying. I don't remember which month it was, but I went to go sit. I think it was July. Maybe it was in 2020 for sure, maybe like July 2020, or maybe June 2020, or May, I don't know. One of those months, like before that second half of the year, basically. And so I remember, planning to go on this trip and planning to, finally go sit this exam. Again, remember, I failed multiple times. So this is the first time now that I'm sitting after stopping work, after gaining more understanding of the CPA exam and what it meant to actually be a CPA candidate, right? And so now I went off. I went away. Shout out to 555 Anglers Avenue. That is where I passed all my exams. But yeah, that's where I would go, and that's the prometric site I would go to. And so, yeah, I flew over with my dad, that night before I was doing my revisions, whatever. And then the next day, early rise, gotta do that review, and then it's time to go to prometric, man. I can't remember all the feelings and emotions I had during that sitting. I knew I was better prepared, And I knew that I was in a place where, I did put in the time and the effort, man. And so I remember sitting for that exam, and the exam felt a lot more comfortable to me. The simulations I felt kind of good on for once. Some CPA exams got a research question that you got to do. And so I remember I did a lot of practice questions in terms of research. In my study program was the Becker program. And so I got really good at doing that. And I was able to find my research question. And, I felt really good about it. But then I want to talk about the next thing before I get into another story after that, which is the wait time, man. Depending on when you sit the CPA exam, you got X amount of weeks to wait. And let me tell you something, that wait time, when you have to wait for your score to come out, is the most mentally draining, the most mentally draining thing in the world. You go back and forth. And for me, I would play this scenario of how did I feel in the exam? I was like, okay, I think I did well on this multiple choice question, but then I got this one wrong for sure. That was tough. And then I was like, okay, I did this well on the simulation question, and then I did terrible on this simulation question. And then you have this back and forth in terms of the waiting game, right? And so, it was just it's a mentally exhausting process, very mentally exhausting. Anyways, after I sat far, I remember, it was time to come back home, right? I felt really good. I felt good about my exam. It's just man, maybe this is the one. And so I remember when we were in that airport in Orlando. Yeah, in Orlando. And, me and my dad putting our bags up, whatever. It's time to go home, right? First problem. We were delayed numerous times. We were delayed for such a long period of time in that airport, man. The problem was that we were also on the same flight as a lot of people from Freeport. So apparently we were going to make a stop to Freeport and then come back to Nassau. For those who may not know what Freeport is, that's one of our family islands. The Bahamas is made out of numerous family islands. Okay, great. And so, obviously with planes, you have your ticket. Your ticket gives your seat, right? I don't remember the reason why, but they were boarding the plane essentially based off okay, if you're going to Freeport, then you put Freeport in the front, and then you put the people going to Nassau in the back. And that kind of ties to another part of the story, which I'll get to. Anyways, we finally board the plane after X amount of hours, right? As we're flying, we finally take off. I'm like, finally. Remember, this is COVID time now. I've been wearing my mask for about 4 to 5 hours. That thing itching. It's burning my cheeks. It's burning my beard. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I need this thing off. Anyway, as we're flying to Freeport, the captain makes an announcement. We cannot land in Freeport because we didn't have jurisdiction to. I need to mention that the flight we were on is Bahamas Air. And so, of course, it's the national carrier of the country. And so I was just confused as to why the national carrier of the country can't land in its family island. But after circling, which felt like circling in the air for hours on end, we finally landed in Freeport, right? Which is good. So then everyone was going to Freeport. Okay, get off. Boom. You're good to go. But then we didn't leave after they got off. For some reason, they had to check our passports again, the people going to Nassau. And so they did this scenario but we had to send our passports up. They had to check them all. But then because they didn't go row by row, they didn't know who the passports belonged to. And so that kind of made more delays. And it was just a long travel day, just one of those long travel days. But then we finally leave Freeport and we get back to Nassau, right? And when we land in Nassau, that's where things go a little bit downhill. We get to Nassau. Now, mind you, as I mentioned earlier, tickets to the plane. Me and my dad, if everything was equal, would have sat in our schedules, our assigned seats, which would have been maybe row 9 and up, something like that. We were in the back, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, whatever. So we get off the plane finally. I'm just like, finally, I get to be home. I could play. I ready to play game, bro. I haven't played game in so long. I'm ready to play game. I want to play game. Get to the airport. We walk in there. For those who are familiar with the Bahamian airport, when you go up those escalators, then you got to see the customs ID. It's before you get downstairs, but you got to go see like the officers, show them your passport, blah, 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 whatever. But remember, this is COVID times, and this was when COVID was very new. Still, it was still new before we knew anything about it. And so when we got in there, we had to stand on this line to some nurses. Essentially, we had to stand on this line because the nurses needed to install an app on our phones, which we could essentially monitor us and check in on us, because we'd have to isolate ourselves for 2 weeks. That's when, 2-week isolation was really big. And so we stood on this line for hours on end. I remember like some people were able to finally get off the line because they were in the front of the plane, so they were able to go through. Others like us who were stuck in the back were waiting for these nurses to finally figure things out, with the app and all of that. And I remember this so clearly. I think it was a policeman came upstairs to the nurses, and he announced that the government announced that we need to isolate for 2 weeks. Not in our home, but at a hotel. And so they had buses to take all of us passengers from the airport to the hotel. I'm not going to name the hotel because it's not their fault. But it just was, that's what it was. And so I remember looking to the heavens and thinking to myself, Lord, please save me. This can't be real. I'm tired. I'm jet lagged. Not jet lag. I'm just tired. I'm exhausted. It's been a long travel day. There's been so many delays, and you're telling me I can't even go home, dog? It was crazy. We finally got to the line. They installed this app on my phone because I'm the one that had data. And then I remember getting escorted to the bus. Me and my dad still have our bags and everything that we brought over. We had Cheesecake Factory, which we were going to eat at home with the family. That wasn't happening no more. We had to go on the bus. I remember Mommy... And bless her heart, she was just so distraught because obviously, right, like her husband and her son were going into a bus and there was no information being given to her as to why. And so I remember going in this bus, we were cramped up with a bunch of other people. And so then we had a police escort, and I was thinking to myself, well, at least we have a police escort. I never had one before. I always wanted one, but not in this way. So anyway, we get escorted to the hotel. Go to the hotel. They gave us some food. Maybe I was hungry, but that food was kicking, brother. That food tasted good. And then we went to sleep. I remember waking up the next day. Told the story to like one of my friends and my cousins. I called my cousin. And I was just like, bro, they got me locked up, dog. And I remember telling him that, bro, I'm gonna get out today for sure. And my dad was just like, don't tell him that because we don't know. We had some nurses coming at the time, some new nurses, come in to check our pressure for some reason. I don't remember why. And then they were like, to me, like my pressure was high. And I thought to myself, of course it's going to be high. I'm locked in a hotel that I had no plans on staying into. None whatsoever. Of course my pressure's going to be high. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm weary. I don't want to be here. I want to play game. And the internet was bad. But yeah, I was just like, I just had faith that we were going to get out today. And so I can't remember much that happened after that, but I remember just taking a nap. I just remember taking a nap and waking up. And then I remember waking up from that nap and hearing like some rustling in the hallway. And so I was just like, what's going on in the hallway? I go into the hallway. I look at the rooms, right? All these rooms were occupied when we came in the night before, last night. But no one was there. The TVs were still on. The doors were open, but no one was there. And I was just like, that's strange. Where'd everybody go? And so I remember going down the stairs to kind of see what the hullabaloo was about. And yeah, I just remember going downstairs in the lobby, and I saw like, okay, some people were standing on a line to like one of the rooms, and I thought nothing of it, right? So I was like, okay, well, whatever. I don't really know what's going on, but okay. And so I climbed back up the stairs. I walked back up the stairs. And as I was going back to my room, I bumped into someone that was on the bus with us that I remember seeing on the flight. And I talked to him. I was just like, bro, can we leave? And he was like, yeah, bro, we could leave. Just go get a sign out sheet from like downstairs and you could go.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if y'all ever watched The Flash. I don't know if y'all ever seen Sonic the Hedgehog run, or when a cartoon character runs and they leave
a smoke behind. But that was me. As soon as I was told that information, I sprinted to my hotel room, where, by the way, my father was still sleeping. And I woke him up. I was like, Daddy, Dad, we can leave. He was he was in a daze because he was just waking up. He's like, oh, what's happening? I was like, Dad, come, we gotta go downstairs. You got to now. I was like, he was trying to put on like his shirt to be presentable. I was like, don't mind, we put on the shirt while we move. We have to go. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to get downstairs to get whatever this form is to get signed out. I remember going downstairs and I was just like, we gotta get on this line. Now, as we were on the line, a couple things were happening. Number one, the same nurses that put that app on our phones in the airport yesterday, are the same ones signing us out. Signing us up. And I remember one of the nurses saying that she's tired, she's ready to go home. And I was like, me too. I am also tired and ready to go home because I haven't been home yet. You were able to go home, but you're tired and But yeah, I remember that. And so me and my dad we heard this and we definitely inched into that room. This is just a regular hotel room, bro. This is not like a conference hall. This is just a hotel room like the one we were staying in. And so I remember us inching in. And so we were talking to one of the nurses. They brought our forms that they use to take our pressure, like I talked about earlier. So they identify us, yeah, blah, blah, boom, whatever. And then the nurse was like, they ran out of forms. And in my mind, I was just like, ay basura. Oh, gee, you have to be kidding me, man. You have to be kidding me. You have to be kidding me. They didn't have the official form. So me and my dad were like, they had like a notebook. We were just like, just put on the note that this note hereby claims that, Dave Sands and his son, blah, 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 can leave. Ladies and gentlemen, when she wrote that note and she put that thing in my hand, it was like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. I had the golden ticket. I could not tell you how quickly me and my father went up them stairs, grabbed the bags, all our suitcases, everything, and got immediately out that hotel. Immediately. I was afraid they were going to change their mind. Now, a couple of things that I forgot to mention. When we got out of the bus the night before, there was officers around us. And they had AK-47s. Why did they have AK-47s? Why? This isn't Call of Duty. I did nothing wrong. I was just like, bro, I just wanted to sit far. I just wanted to go far to sit far. That's it. I didn't know. I didn't know there was going to be pain and suffering for sitting far. But nonetheless, when they let me out them gates, me and my father went to the other side of the hotel. We didn't want to be on property anymore. We remember like one of the officers calling us, like asking if that like a car that pulled in was our ride. We didn't even want to talk to him, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted nothing to deal with these people because I want to leave. And then my mother finally came and picked up me and my dad, and oh my goodness, we were saved. I was fresh out of jail, bro. I got locked up for all the right reasons, for following the rules. But yeah, that story to me was always crazy to think about, literally for a CPA exam. But yeah, we fast forward now when it's time to see the score. And I remember, man, being so nervous on that day. For those who may not know, I think it's NASBA, CPA Central. CPA Central, NASBA, I believe, are they the same thing? I think they tie together. I can't remember. But if you follow their Twitter account will announce that when the scores are out. And mind you, you could go on their website to see like what date your score will be out. Like if you sit a certain time, it gives you the time when the score will be out. And so they would tweet like, okay, exam candidates, your score will come out at 7 p.m. Central. And everybody's reaction to those tweets were always the same. Depression, throwing up, sick to my stomach, I want to pass out. And I always felt that feeling and emotion as well. Ladies and gentlemen, when I got that score and I opened it up for the first time and I saw a pass, my first ever pass, I was just like, wow. I probably still have the video. I have a lot of CPA videos actually, because I always wanted to do like a documentary on it, like a docuseries. But man, it was just like, it was a feeling that I couldn't describe. Years of hard work to finally get one. This isn't even all four now. I felt like I won. I finally got a pass. And so now I just have to do it 3 more times. And so, yeah, but with that knowledge and with that experience, I was able to then replicate that. I think after FAR, I sat audit. Now, audit was different. Audit was the one I failed the most times. And audit, I wanted to get revenge on because audit caused me so much pain. That exam was so painful. And so I had the bright idea that I don't want to just pass. No, I couldn't accept I was going to pass with a 75. I wanted to pass well, in quotation marks. In hindsight, passing well is still a 75. But I was just like, I'm going to go for an 80. And so that's what I did. I studied hard, went for an 80. And I think I got like an 81, I think. I believe I did. Yeah, I got an 81 or so. Dead happy about that. I was just like, yeah, take that. And I remember during those times where, you know, I felt like I was having some level of change in my life. You know, I felt like God was kind of reaching out to me. The Lord needed me to like change in a lot of ways. And I had a lot of growing to do at the time. And I remember praying and I was listening to a Christian video when, you know, I believe I rededicated myself to God during that time. Not that I was doing anything bad, but I just felt like I just needed to. And I felt like there was just something happening in my life during that time. When I came back home after university, I was kind of lost in a way because the life of uni is so different from reality. And so I had to relearn who Dave was and relearn the person that I wanted to be. And so, yeah, after that, I don't remember when it was. I don't remember if it was before audit or I think maybe it was before BEC because that was the third one I sat. Rededicated my life to God, man. And, you know, the devil was definitely active during that time. Definitely just attacking me in so many ways because I was living in the times that I prayed for. I prayed to be here, man. I always was wondering, like, all my friends and colleagues around me were passing this exam, and I was just like, Lord, when can I experience what they're experiencing, you know? You try to figure out what God is doing. I know I mentioned in the last episode of Jeremiah 29:11, says, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future, right? And I didn't know what the plan was. I was so confused. But now I was in God's plan. I was in what I was praying for. And so that's when the devil was really active, trying to get me off my way. And so after passing audit, it was time for BEC. You know, BEC was a weird one. Some people say that BEC is the easiest because it has the shortest material, but that's a sneaky boy. That's where your written communication comes in. You know what I'm saying? That's when you have to like type essays and, you know, memos and all those different stuff. That's how you learn how to like write, I guess, from a business perspective. And so I can't really remember how BEC was. That just felt like a blur. I do remember, though, coming out of the exam thinking that I failed because I was just like, again, that would probably be that was my second time taking BEC. And so I was just like, yeah, definitely failed. I didn't feel good about that exam in any instance, right? But then I come back, I look at the score, I get a 76, and I'm just like, oh, well, that's nice. That's fantastic. But yeah, BEC was a weird one for sure, but grateful for a pass. And I think the one thing I was grateful for during that time was that I recognized every pass. Like, when you fail the CPA exam, you feel that, man. You really do. And I made sure to live and recognize that, boy, Dave, you are in the times you prayed for. Every pass that I got, I was ready for, man. I was just like, thank you, God. This was the times that I was waiting for. And so I was at a point now where I have 3 exams behind me. In the span of 1 year in 2020, I went from being, in my eyes, a failure to now having 3 out of the 4 exams, 75% completed. No pun intended, wink, wink. And there was 1 more left. 1 more exam stood between me and a journey and a goal that I set out from 2018. Listen to what I said, people. 2020 was when I first started passing any part of the CPA exam. Almost 2 years later, going into 3 years, this is when I'm starting to pass. And I remember being at the cusp. And truthfully, I was in the best scenario that I could possibly be in. Like I mentioned before, after that first pass, you have an 18-month window to pass the others. But within a 6-month window, people, before the end of 2020, I passed 3 exams back to back to back. I was in the best space possible, the best place possible, the best place possible to finish these exams. No worries about losing a part, because I have to just say this. I feel for anyone that has lost a part of the CPA exam, because when that 18-month window was up, people, for that one part that you passed, it's gone. You have to retake it. You don't get it back. And I've heard so many stories of people losing parts and coming back and still passing the exam. So for those who ever lost a part of their CPA exam and came back from that and passed the exam fully, kudos to you. That is a different mindset. That is a different mentality. I talk about Mamba mentality with like Kobe and, I think in episode 1, but that is a different mentality. That is faith and faith alone. When you put your trust in God, you can do anything. But my goodness, that is some serious mentality that you have to go through. So here I am, basically almost at the end of this journey in December 2020. And I'm studying for regulation. And frankly, I was just burned out. It was just a lot of studying at the time. I had so many changes in my life at the time. I sacrificed so much, but I was so drained, man. And I remember when I flew over to take reg, because I didn't take reg beforehand. This is my first time taking reg. Was going a little crazy in that hotel room because I had to extend reg further because I didn't feel prepared. So I stayed in the hotel room for an additional week. Kind of funny story. I carried my plastic WWE belt with me. And I would play wrestlers themes to hype myself up and be like, yeah, I got this. I'm the champion. It was the Intercontinental belt, for anyone wondering. The classic one that Rey Mysterio held. That was one of my favorite belts. But yeah, I carried that over, man. And so, yeah, I was over for a period of time, studied for regulation. I had a lot of trouble with that material because the Bahamas doesn't have nearly as much taxes as the US. And so I remember seeing that exam kind of just hoping for hope, really. And just praying and listening to wrestling music, hoping that I would get through it. But you know, I got the score back, and it wasn't what I wanted it to be. And so I remember getting that score back. I was devastated, obviously. Didn't cry that much. No, I don't remember crying, but I was definitely disappointed. I was just like, man, I thought this was going to be it. Because, you know, my family was talking about, you know, how we going to, you know, celebrate me passing and all that different stuff. But I couldn't deliver at that time. And so I took a couple days, I think maybe 1 or 2 days, and I got back on the high horse. And by that time, my father trusted me that I knew how to study for the exam. And so because he had so much confidence in me during that entire process, without him, I would not have passed any single exam. So big shout out to my father for being the best tutor and father that a man could ask for. He believed in me more than anyone, more than I believed in myself. And so without him, I would not be here today. So I'm really grateful to him. Love you, Dad. If you're listening to this, I just want to let you know that. But, you know, I remember finally going for reg once again, and I studied, man. Like, I got so good studying with reg that my notes were top tier notes. And at the time, I forgot to mention, like I said, I did the Becker program, and on Facebook they have like these Becker groups for like all 4 parts of the exam. I was in the reg exam, man. I mean the reg group. That's the only one I joined because I needed help with reg. And I remember in that group, and this is game for anyone who's studying for the CPA exam. They still have those groups, I believe. Look it up on Facebook. They have notes. They have notes in there. I'm talking notes on every single chapter. And you better believe your boy downloaded all them notes and kind of made them my own. And, you know, I created my own notes, and I was able to make notes back and front that had like every single chapter, basically like 4 pages covering all material of reg. I got to a point in that regulation where I was telling Becker, because talking to myself, right? I'm talking out loud, talking to the book. I'm just like, no, they should have put this information at the top, in the top paragraph, because then it would tie better with the other information. And man, getting to that point where I'm telling the book itself, like, hey, you should have done this to make the information better, I knew I was ready. I knew I was prepared. Some things I also did during my CPA process that may be helpful for some people. I don't know if Becker still has it, but I was able to send like the instructors who went over like lectures and stuff. I was able to send them questions. So we became best friends throughout my entire CPA journey. I would bombard them with any question I had. I would even do hypotheticals, like, hypothetically speaking, sir, what if we did this? And I was just like, you know, that's how good, or I wouldn't even say how good, that's the amount of detail I needed to understand for the CPA exam. And so I remember getting ready to fly off for that one last time. I felt prepared. I was getting over 80% in the multiple choice practice questions. I was passing the practice exams in Becker. And basically, if you could pass those exams in Becker, because it doesn't take into account like throwaway questions like I talked about earlier, then you're basically ready for the exam. And I remember being in that airport here, kind of past COVID now, not past COVID, but in a better spot with COVID where travel was kind of regular again. And I remember, you know, praying with my father in the airport. Did we pray? Maybe we did. I can't remember. But I do remember him saying, go get our things. And I was just like, I'm going to go get our things being a pass. And so I remember going up there, I think it was a Saturday or so, maybe a Friday, I can't remember. Studying, bro, just kind of grinding, just reviewing. That Sunday, the Monday I was going to take my exam, so Sunday I was just reviewing once again. I remember it was that time to shut my eyes. And so I did, and before you know it, the morning came. And when that morning came, I did my final review, called up a taxi to 555 Anglers Ave, and I went into Prometric, awaiting what was to come. I wanted to make that the last time. And so I remember sitting in that waiting area, because there was a waiting area outside of like the testing area. And so I didn't go in automatically. I was just sitting there for, I think, 30 minutes to 40, maybe it felt like an hour or so. I believe it was an hour maybe. And I kind of started feeling like the information was leaving my brain. And I was just like, man, this wait time, man, this is kind of killing me. But I remember finally getting that opportunity to walk into the exam room. You know, prayed, wrote out my game plan, my times that I needed to submit my testlets, because that was a strategy too, like having times you would submit your testlet at, like each of the 5 testlets. And, you know, I started that exam, and when I started it, kind of felt kind of lost a little bit. I was just like, man, my brain didn't kick in. But I think after like the 15 multiple choice, my brain started to kick. I went to little Ultra Instinct, if anyone knows that anime reference. And I started to see all the tricks that the examiners were trying to do. I said, aha, you can't do this to me. I know this trick. I know this answer. I know how to do this. I'm saying, okay, boom, beep, bop, boop, bada, beep, beep, bop, bada, beep, boop, boop. Before you know it, I'm out of the first 2 testlets. Multiple choice, done. I get to testlet 3, simulations. I can't remember what simulations were there, but I was just like, okay, I know some of these words. I was just like, okay, bet. Get through testlet 3. Then I have my break. I was just like, you know, and during that break, like I mentioned, 15-minute break, you have your little snacks. I would order like a muffin from Dunkin' Donuts, like the morning of, you know, and, you know, I have my little things so I could fuel up and drink my water and all that different stuff. After those 15 minutes, got back in that room. Time to keep it moving. Testlet 4. Testlet 4 was a critical one for me. I felt as though that if I kill Testlet 4, I have this exam beat. I felt really good. And I remember sitting there in Testlet 4. I can't remember what sims it were. But I do remember, like, I was cracking the codes. And I was just like, I think these are the answers I need to give. I put that in. I was just like, that might have been it. I got into Testlet 5. Submitted it. And that was my exam. I remember coming out that exam, I don't know, I was just like, you know, I feel like I may have a chance this time. I feel like we have a chance. And that wait time between, you know, when I submitted that exam to actually seeing my score felt like the longest thing ever. I had to wait a week. It was the longest wait of my life, really. And so I remember it was time for that score to release. And so remember the fam coming together. Oh, put CPA Central on the screen. I refreshed the page and I saw 83. The highest I ever scored in the CPA exam was an 83. We don't have tax in the Bahamas. Not as many as the US. But by the grace of God, I got the highest score I ever received on my CPA exam in my last exam. I remember being so excited. I jumped around. I have a video of it. Maybe if I release a documentary, that'll come out. But I was so excited. I was so grateful. I was on the floor. I can't remember what verse I said. I think I quoted maybe 2 Timothy 1 verse 7. 2 Timothy 1 verse 7. For the Lord hath given us the spirit of fear, but one of power, love, and a sound mind. I believe that was the verse I quoted. But nonetheless, I quoted a verse, and it was one of the best days of my life, man. It was the end of a journey. It was the end of a time for me, and it meant so much to me. I say all this to say that I mentioned before how much I hated this exam. I hated failure. I hated feeling like I was a loser, and I hated feeling like my life really didn't have meaning. And I questioned God so many times, in so many instances. I didn't know what he was doing in my life. I didn't know and understand the purpose or his plan. But when I looked back, I fully realized what that plan was. I needed to change. He needed me to grow up. He needed me to put all my faith in him. He needed me to believe that through him, I can pass this exam. He needed me to believe in, I believe, Philippians 4 verse 13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And as soon as I actually put faith in him, full faith, that I was going to pass this exam through him, that's when he allowed me to pass. I also think of, like, if I had passed when I wanted to, would I have been mature enough to handle that success? I don't know if I would have been. I still had a lot of growing up to do at the time. So when did I pass fully? In 2021, 18 I was 21, 19, 22, 20, I turned 24 in 2021. So basically, I had to wait till I was 23 going on 24 in July to receive that success. And I was in a much better headspace, and I was mentally prepared for that success. And so I just want to talk firstly to all the CPA candidates, man. I think the one thing that I would want to say to everybody who's going on that journey is that everyone's plan is different. Everyone's journey is different. My journey is going to look different from yours. My journey is not going to be the same as yours. Maybe you'll get through it faster than me, and I hope you do, because it's hard and it's long and it's expensive. These exams are expensive. Or maybe you'll do the exam as long as me. Or maybe you'll do the exam even longer than me, that you'll be chasing it longer. But the one thing I could say is that you will pass. And I say this to friends all the time, that we know you're going to pass. It's just a matter of time. And it's going to be in God's time. Jeremiah 29:11, again, for I know the plans. Ecclesiastes, once again, I believe, I can't remember, Ecclesiastes 3, where it talks about, where King Solomon talks about, yet the Lord has made the plans for us. If I could quickly get that quote, because I want to make sure that I'm pouring it correctly. I believe it's in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, but where King Solomon talks about, everything God has done, it's under his plan, basically. I'll try to find it before the end of the show, but God truly has a plan for our lives, people. To all the CPA candidates, if you fully put your faith in the Lord, I promise you, you will do exceedingly and abundantly great things. You will pass the CPA exam. You will achieve that goal. You will be great. You will get your heart's desires of finally passing that exam. And I think that that's such an important thing. Now I want to talk to the dreamers. To the dreamers, the ones who aren't doing the CPA exam, but you may be doing the ACCA, you may be in the process of getting your doctorate, your master's degree, or building that business, man. The same applies to you. Through God, anything is possible. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. It may not happen in the time period that you want it to, but it will happen. It will happen. And to everyone else, it's going to happen. Whatever dream that you have, it will happen. And so I just want to say that if you know someone who's going through the CPA exam, just understand that they're going through a lot. So make sure you pray for them. Make sure that you just support them in any way. Send them kind words. Just say, bro, just hearing like I'm thinking about you, or hearing that, bro, I'm praying for you. It's a beautiful thing. And I finally found that verse I was talking about, y'all. Ecclesiastes 3:11, just the beginning of that verse. He has made everything beautiful in its time. And man, the verse continues on, but I just want to talk about that part of the verse. Looking back now, that was such a beautiful journey for me. I needed that more than ever. I found myself once again. I did. And so, yeah. See, man, that is the full story. That was a journey, man. The CPA means so much to me, and I hope that whoever's listening to this, know that whatever journey you're going through, it's beautiful, and God has made everything beautiful in His time, and that you will be successful. Maybe not the time that you want it, but the time that God wants you to have it. And so, with that being said, thank you all for listening to this extended podcast, this topic, and this, oh man, it means so much to me. It still does to this day. I'm still very proud of it. And yeah, thank you all for listening. See how we move. God is good all the time. And yeah, thank you. We move.